Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith of Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Thursday morning, November the 10th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I'm just trying to put the chat room open right now. And, thanks for being here, everybody. I appreciate it. And missed my show yesterday and didn't schedule one. And didn't have time to schedule one in the morning, so we're just looking at a website called Soul Expressions Abuse Recovery, mainly looking at the inner child healing work, so that's what we're kind of working through. It's a great website, lots of good information there for survivors, and mainly geared for survivors of child sexual abuse or sexual abuse, and but there's good information on there, so hopefully everybody will get something out of it. I know I am. I'm mainly looking at the inner child healing work just because that's what I'm doing right now, and so there's some helpful information there, I think. So I'll put the link in the chat room here in a second, and I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. You know, I've been doing these shows for like almost 2 years now, and this month will be 2 years, and I appreciate everybody spending this time with me, you know, spending 2 years with me. I know there's a lot of people who listen that I don't know who they are. You know, I don't know who you are, and hopefully I appreciate it, and hopefully, you know, it's helping and getting something out of my process, you know, to see what I'm working through and the different stages and different things that are happening through my healing journey, so I appreciate it. And I'm not a counselor or therapist, and I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio. So you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my stuff because, you know, I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a very sensitive subject, obviously. It can bother people, it can trigger survivors, you know. And so you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and you have to make those really good choices for yourself. If you think that the topics of abuse of any type, you know, might bother you or trigger you, as you know, cause you to feel down or to, you know, go backward in your healing journey, then you need to not listen to my shows, right? Because I'm quite a ways through my healing journey. I'm able to talk about this stuff. I'm able to look at it and deal with it. But, you know, there's periods in survivors' lives where, you know, this type of information can be distressing. So, you know, you need to be very careful what you're listening to, what you're doing online. When you're listening to this kind of stuff, anything like this, right? So, and I'm not a counselor or anything like that. I'm just a private citizen. I'm just a person who's going through my healing journey and wanted to just voice out really what survivors have to go through so many times. And so, I'm actually just looking for this website that I was looking at. And so, yeah, just please listen at your own discretion and make the right choice for yourself. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows because I'm all about protecting children, and, you know, anyone 18 and under needs to have an adult or somebody in your life who's older, who's an adult, who can help you make the decision whether or not you should be listening to my shows, because it's not for younger children. My shows, there's a lot of adult content and mature material on my shows, and I just think that young people need to have an adult listen to the show with you, or at least take a look at the shows and make sure that it is something that's okay for you to listen to, because you need to learn how to protect yourself and keep yourself safe online, right? It's so important. I know what it's like to not have a parent who cared what I was doing, you know what I mean? So I know that that's not always, you know, possible. But maybe if you have a counselor or teacher, somebody at school that you trust, an adult, maybe a mentor or someone that you've been working with or whatever, who can listen to the shows and see if it's something that's appropriate for you, right? Age appropriate. So thanks, everybody. We're going to get right into this, taking a look at the inner child healing work from Becky. And Becky, she's a therapist and a counselor. She's a survivor herself, and she's got a great website, Soul Expressions Abuse Recovery, www.soul-expressions-abuse-recovery.com. So if you just type into your browser, Soul Expressions Abuse Recovery, it should come up. And she's got so much good information here on the side, on the left-hand side of her page. There's like a little menu bar, like a little menu tab, and she's just got so much information there. She's done some great work on this website, and I just think it's worth taking a look through. And we were looking at the inner child healing process. We're moving our way down the article, and she says that, you know, many times, as well as like John Bradshaw and Robert Burney, who I've been really concentrating with my healing work in their stuff. John Bradshaw, he's the author of Healing the Shame That Binds You, as well as Homecoming, Reclaiming, and Healing Your Inner Child. And Robert Burney wrote a book, and he's written lots of material on his website. But Robert Burney is he's a therapist and counselor as well, and he mainly works in codependency and inner child work, and he's got a book called Codependency: The Dance of Wounded Souls, and that's an awesome book as well. So I've been working in their stuff, and what they had to say is pretty well what what Becky was talking about, sort of the same thing, that so many times we have these inner children that are actually running our lives, and really because of the wounds that we suffered as children, the damage that was done. These inner children, these small, these younger versions of ourselves that were wounded from so long ago, are really the decisions that we're making are based on what happened to them. The idea that so many survivors can't, feel that they can't trust anybody, and they feel that life, is let them down, and that, they just quite often will self-sabotage like relationships, self-sabotage working relationships, just anything, self-sabotage themselves, right? All based on this wounding that, happened to us as children. So that's why there's a whole lot of talk by a lot of people about inner child work. And I know I started my inner child healing work a while back now, I would say at least a year or close to it. It's really helped me a lot. I don't know about anybody else. I really can't speak for anybody else. I just know for me it has helped me to actually do the work on it. But it's not advisable, even John Bradshaw says, not to do the inner child healing work on your own. And even like the ASCA, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Morris Center program, they have a workbook called the Survivor to Thriver workbook. And in that workbook, there's 35 pages of safety first at the very beginning. 35 pages devoted to safety first for survivors of abuse who are going to go through the workbook, because that's how important it is to keep yourself safe while you're working on this stuff. You need to know that you're not going to hurt yourself. You need to know that you're not going to hurt somebody else. And sometimes it's hard to even tell, because if you haven't done a lot of the healing work as a survivor of abuse, and you haven't really started doing too much looking back and working with the painful memories and stuff, you're not even sure how you would handle it, right? So they say, have somebody with you, like have whether it's a counselor or a therapist that you're working with, or someone who's working closely with you, group support, or some sort of survivor support that you might have in place in your life to help you go through this stuff. I know I'm not really on my own in it. I mean, I'm doing my stuff self-help, but I've got some friends who are helping me out, like, to make sure that I'm okay and I'm doing all right, even though I'm doing the stuff on my own. I'm not really on my own, because I do have some friends who are really supporting me through this, which is great. So you need to make sure that you're safe enough, first of all, to do the inner child healing work, that you're not going to hurt yourself or someone else, or spiral downward in your healing journey, or spiral backward. You don't want to do that. So be careful. And I think the Survivor to Thriver workbook, it's free. You can go to www.ascasupport.org. That's the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program. And on their website, you can find the link to their Survivor to Thriver manual, the workbook. And you can download it for free. It's free. And you can read the first 35 pages, which is safety first, and I think it's important to do that. I did that. And it makes good sense. It is completely good. It makes really good sense, because you just never know how you're going to react to dealing with painful, traumatic memories of any type. You know what I mean? It can be very hard on people. I know that I'm past that now, because I'm okay. I've done it, and it's wonderful, and I'm glad that I did it. But, if you haven't done a whole lot of it, then you want to be very careful about doing that. Make sure you have a support mechanism already in place before you do it, just in case it does send you kind of, spiraling downward, or just becoming depressed or whatever, looking at these painful memories, right? Then you need to have a support mechanism in place to help you, so that you don't fall and become, and make things worse in your healing journey, right? So important. So we'll just sort of take a look at what she was talking about here next. We came up to a section that she was talking about the Gestalt method. I didn't know what it was called, but I've actually sort of done that, where she said you pretend to visualize that the child part of you, the inner child, is sitting in the chair in front of you, and I guess we're supposed to talk to them and tell them, that we understand their what they're going through, their anger, their fears, their pain, the abuse, right? But that we can't allow them to control our life anymore, these inner children. We need to let them know that we're in charge, we're the adults, and we can make these good decisions for ourselves and keep ourselves safe, and we can, we can take over the job as the adult person. Because, my 8-year-old and my 7-year-old, and probably even further back than that, 10-year-old, my inner children have been running my life. Not all of it, but parts of it, aspects of it. And I could see that because most of my decisions to break off relationships all come from a place of pain, and they all come from a place of distrust. And so, I knew that's where the wounding really shows up. Is a lot of my decision making processes are pretty immature. And that's just from being abused as a child. My inner children are saying, "Man, they're going to hurt us. We need to cut that off. They're going to hurt us again, or they're going to do this, or they're going to." My inner children are just, they not so much anymore, but they were panicking all the time, just thinking, "Oh, what's this relationship going to bring?" Because they were wounded, severely wounded as children. They don't trust anybody, and so it's kind of hard for them. Me, as the adult person, I've learned that I can trust certain people. Certain people have shown themselves trustworthy, and I've met some wonderful people in this life, and that's great. You know what I mean? I actually, even as a teenager, had met some wonderful people, which actually sort of helped me to make I don't know, to realize that the world isn't really all bad, because I grew up in hell, so I understand. Like, I know what it's like for people who grow up in a lot of psychological, emotional, damaging stuff where it's just craziness. You know what I mean? Because both my parents were mentally ill. And my dad was schizophrenic and was having all kinds of neurotic, episodes of seeing the devil and demons, and even my brothers were doing that. But my brothers were doing drugs too, so that didn't help. But they were, quite a few of my family members were having psychotic episodes. My mom was manic depressive, so she was always talking about suicide or talking about killing me or talking about killing herself or somebody else in the house or my dad or whatever. And my dad was suicidal. So there was a whole lot of chaotic, really crazy stuff going on, and that's why I write my books, right? So I want people to know that so many times people don't realize that this stuff's going on within families, and they don't understand the depths of the damage done. And so that's why I write my stories, because I want the public, and also, for validation for other survivors, but I also do it to raise awareness in the public that, not every child's life is great. Not every child's life is a wonderful life, and lots of people think, oh, well, maybe that child just, a lot of people like to minimize abuse and say, well, maybe that person's just upset because they didn't get a brand new bike when they were a kid or something, and that's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do with these little things that most people would think that children would be upset about. Abuse is abuse. Discipline is discipline. They are two different things, and that's why I write my book because I think it's important that people realize that we have to stop minimizing abuse. We have to stop minimizing it and stop shoving it under the carpet. Because that's where a lot of people would like to see it go, and I refuse. So I'm just speaking out on behalf of everybody who can't. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's pretty damaging what happens to children. So my inner children are, they're still damaged from what happened, obviously, and they need to know that it's okay. That I'm fine, and that no one's, that no one is going to hurt them ever again. They are safe. And so what I did was I went through a healing program really called Forget Talking Therapy, which I've only done the first 3 parts of it, but the 3 or 4, I kind of got close to the 4th part, but that was very helpful. Visualization, a type of visualization and guided imagery where I created a safe place for my inner children. And I haven't done all the work in it, but that's what I'm sort of slowly working through the process, right? But I've done a lot of the major portions of it, which is to get them to safety, to get myself to safety, to realize that, hey, my inner children can no longer ever be hurt again. Me as the adult can be hurt again, because this is reality. I'm an adult. I live on the planet, and people do hurt people. So, I myself, I know that I could enter a relationship and end up with hurt feelings or whatever, but, that's just reality. But my inner children can never, ever be hurt again, because that's the past, and the past is done. And so what I've done is created a safe place for them where they know that their abusers, which is my parents and one of my brothers, are not ever going to hurt them again. It's just not possible. And it's a safe place that I created in my mind for my inner self. You know what I mean? So that I can feel some sense of safety from a child's point of view, right? Because there was no safety in my home when I was growing up. Nothing was safe. You know what I mean? So that's why, I have a lot of anxiety problems, probably even today showing through, and a lot of, not so much fears and paranoia, a lot of anger and a lot of mistrust and distrust and all that kind of stuff. So she says that this is actually called the Gestalt method, where we're supposed to sit down and talk with our inner children, and we're supposed to let them know that they're not in control of our life. Really we are. And we're supposed to tell them that we love them and that we're never going to leave them and that the abuse is over and that we can definitely manage things and everything's good, sort of to set ourselves up to feel good about things. And so I think that's what I didn't realize that was called the Gestalt method, right? But that's what it is. So she goes on to talk about she says find out what that child needs to be nurtured, right? She says as humans, especially as children, we all have the need to be nurtured. And if you didn't get those needs met as a child, then figure out how you can get them now. It's never too late, she says, and this is all about healing your inner child. So she says if your inner child never got to play, then you need to set aside time to go to the park and play on the swings and get those needs met. Healing your inner child is all about meeting your unmet needs in a way that doesn't harm you or anyone else. So she says if you need to sleep with a stuffed animal to feel safe for a while, then do it. She says there's no harm in that, and we all need to have our safety needs met. So safety is a priority. So she just talks about her own stuff here, and so anything that helps us to feel safe, a security blanket or whatever it may be, that we can feel better. She says I have read where some therapists have their clients create a child doll of themselves to care for while healing their inner children. So I've never heard of that because this is quite interesting. And she says, I think that's a great idea, and that's also something that you can do for a time until you no longer have the need to do so. It is hands-on, and anything you can do hands-on is good, so you can see and feel the results. That's really quite interesting. You create a child doll of myself and nurture and care for that doll, representing myself as a baby or as an infant or as a young child, right? It's quite interesting. I don't really feel the need to do that. I don't feel like that would be something I'd have to do, but maybe for somebody else it might be beneficial. What I do is color with my 7-year-old. My 7-year-old inner child actually wants to color and likes to color, and so I bought some. I've always over the years bought, not every year, but I'd say 2 or 3 times in my lifetime as an adult, I've bought crayons and coloring books, not a bunch, just a pack of crayons and a coloring book, and color for a bit and then just get rid of it, because I don't have any children, right? So there's nobody around that has children that I know of, so. I'd color for a bit and then I'd get rid of it. And I was I wasn't even on my healing journey, but I was actually thinking it'd be fun, right? And because, I don't do really a whole lot of arts and crafts type stuff. Not very artsy craftsy, right? I'm creative in other ways, but not so much with arts and crafts. And so, it was more interesting for me just to color in between the lines. You know what I mean? That's good enough for me. But I didn't realize, that that's my inner child who was wanting to color. You know what I mean? Didn't clue into that until I started doing the inner child healing work, and mainly through John Bradshaw's stuff, Homecoming, Reclaiming, and Healing Your Inner Child, where he suggests that you actually let your inner child write, and there's whole sections in his book that are actually it's a workbook. When you read it, it doesn't. When you look at it, it doesn't seem to be a workbook. It doesn't say workbook on it. But it really is a workbook, and you can do it through groups. You can do it with group settings, or you can do it on your own. And I'm actually doing the work on my own, and it's great because he has some great ideas there. And as far as allowing ourselves to let our child write what they need to write. So I let myself write with my non-dominant hand, which is my right hand because I'm left-handed, and I just allow my inner child to write and tell me things. And really, honestly, when I'm doing that, it's not me thinking of it; it's the other side of my brain allowing my inner self to write what I need to write from so long ago, my inner child, right? So I have done some of that, and I actually planned on getting back to that. For a while here on Saturdays, I was planning on doing like an hour or 2 hour show on that, just going through and talking about that and reading what she wrote. I actually did some of that before, and I'll probably get back to that in December. Actually, I have my schedule kind of set to start back on that in December. So, yeah, because it's very helpful. It really did help me to see to hear my inner child's voices, right, where they need to be able to say what they need to say. And I haven't got all the way through it, but I have done quite a few portions of it, the inner child, the infant, the inner toddler, the preschool age, and the school age child. I've actually done all that. But I haven't done the adolescent one yet, the inner adolescent. And so I'm still kind of working through it, so I figured I'll pick that back up here in, sometime in December or so. I think that's probably a good time to start because things will start to slow down for me, and it's been really busy for me right now. So you got to have time to do that because I got to get into that meditative state, where I can allow myself to go back and allow myself to let that inner child actually let her voice really be heard, and let her take over the pen and start writing. And it takes time to it takes me time to get into that, right? So excuse me. So yes, I'll probably get back into that. But these are things that we can do, for inner child healing work. And this, so Becky's just making a few suggestions here about the stuffed animal. If we want to sleep with a stuffed animal for a while to feel safe, I mean, there's just no harm done in that. Things like this, right? I don't feel like the need to do that, but I can imagine that there'd be people out there who would need to do that, and who would get some comfort out of that, right? And so, it's not a bad thing. So she says the main point here is to take the control away from the child inside of you or the children, right, who have been making your life decisions based on reactive emotions, and healing them, which actually heals yourself and puts you, the adult, in charge of your life and gives you back your power. Well, isn't that the truth? I was talking to, if you got to listen to the show, Beverly Cyril, she was on my show, Beverly Cyril from Australia. She's the founder of Forget Talking Therapy, and she came on my show not too long ago, last weekend. And it was a great chat. Like, I hope you go back and listen to that. She's very, very knowledgeable and intelligent. She's worked with survivors, for so many years, worked in the mental health system. She's worked with people with DID, PTSD and whatnot, not just from childhood, like abuse, but also from traumatic events, right? Adverse life effects, she likes to call it. And so, but she has, because of what she does, worked with many survivors of abuse. And she's, she was telling me, because, I was doing the show with, we were doing the interview, that all of our stuff from the pain and the inner child stuff is all coming from emotions. And so the decisions that I'm making as an adult, right, which is to self-injure, to self-harm, the suicidal planning that I was doing until 4.5 years ago, all that stuff was all based on emotions that I was feeling from a child. And there's no real way to get to do anything with that vocally, verbally, because the inner child's all the memories and emotions are stored in the limbic system, and all those traumatic, painful memories from fight or flight. When anyone experiences fight or flight, it actually places a marker in the limbic system, which is like a memory thing, and it holds it there in the limbic part of the brain. And then there's no way to really deal with it verbally, because there's no language. There's no language in that part of the brain. It's all pictures, right? So we have to be able to change the pictures in order to change the way we feel. And so that's why she's not saying that talk therapy is no good. That's not at all what she's saying. She's just saying that's part of it. It's helpful. But she's saying that the real healing part comes from the healing the emotional wounds from childhood in the limbic system, right? And so I think it's amazing, really, because I've done 3-4 sections of the work, and it has helped me out a lot. It's amazing because, I've been, I could just talk about child abuse, and same old thing. The pictures are still there. The wounding is still there. It's still done. But because I've done this visualization work and guided imagery work, it has helped me a lot to feel better about things. I don't feel so angry. I don't feel so terrorized. These were my inner children who were angry and terrorized. I still have my 10-year-old. I still need to do a lot of work with my 10-year-old inner child, because that's the one who keeps me in a state of anger. And that's my inner self from 10 years old, where things were so out of control, in my life, that I want to die. I was hoping my mother would kill me. I wasn't necessarily thinking of killing myself at that age, but I definitely started to self-injure after that. And then when I became an older teen, I was just hoping I would die somewhere or something would happen, and I just in the pain. But by the time I was probably about 13, 14, I really was spiritually so dead that I'd just be screaming at God, why are you leaving me in this hell? Because I was really in hell. A real hell. And I remember sitting out in the backyard right around 15 years old, just cursing him. I couldn't believe that he would just do this and just leave me. I was so spiritually dead, and so spiritually so wounded. Not only just emotionally, psychologically, physically wounded, but just so spiritually wounded. I didn't think there was any way for me to come back, And so that's the part of me that all has to take place in the limbic system, that I need to be able to work with through guided imagery and visualizations and whatnot. So I've been doing a lot of work on it, but I still have a lot to do. I haven't really been able to spend the time that I need to work with my 10-year-old inner child, who really is the most, who took on the brunt of all the abuse before that, which was the sexual abuse, the violence from my mother. And the violence from my mother continued right on until I was 17, so that didn't change. But I was older and I was doing a lot of drugs, and I was coping in a different way. But as a young child, just wanting my mother's love and wanting her to love me and to care about me, and then to have her physically abuse me and spiritually damage me, emotionally, psychologically wound me, and then to be abused sexually by my brother, my dad. Not my dad sexually using me, but my dad's abuse. It was absolutely like a nightmare. And by the time I was 10 years old, I was warped. My mind was warped. I mean, I had just witnessed and been part of so much abuse that I didn't think there was any way for me to ever feel differently, or that things would ever change. I remember being about 13 years old and 10th grade, sitting in the back of a car, driving down the road with my friends and getting high and stuff. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't care if I die right now. Like, I totally remember being in the back of that car. I can remember, what clothes I had on. I totally remember the whole thing. And I remember, sitting there just thinking, I really don't care. I could die right now, and that would be just fine with me. That's how much pain I was in. But there was nothing anybody could do. You know what I mean? The damage was done. And it's too bad that I didn't get help earlier. You know what I mean? That's the whole issue. But I'm glad that I finally made the decision at 41 years old. Nearly 42 years old, 41 and a half years old, to get help. You know what I mean? Like, my God, like I was still suffering on in that, even though I was able to hold jobs down and had done some great things in the last 20 years, 20, 25 years, done some awesome things, and experienced some great things. There was always that underlying stuff in the back of my heart, in the back of my mind, that I was that 10-year-old, still that 10-year-old who had been raped, who had been beaten, who had been totally abused by my mother, and sexually abused by my brother, and totally mistreated by my dad. And I thought, wow, like, how am I going to ever heal from this? Like, how? Because I was by the time I was 10, I realized that I just wanted to be dead. And I thought, how am I going to go back and change that for myself? Well, that's exactly what I've been doing this 4.5 years. So it's been taking some time to work through it, and that's for sure. It doesn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for me, and maybe it does for some other people. That's wonderful. For me, it didn't happen overnight. But I'm looking for lasting effects. I'm not looking for a quick fix. Quick fixes don't help anything. I used to do that with drugs, right? Fixes just don't solve the problems. Well, so it is taking me time to work through this stuff, because I'm having to go through piece by piece, little by little, and still maintain my life too, which is great. Because I didn't want to just say, okay, I got to go into, I got to go, disappear for about 3 or 4 years and try to heal. It's like, no, I'm still working. I'm still maintaining my life. I have pets. I have a sweetheart. In the meantime, I got to deal with stuff like my sweetheart's terminal illness. He's terminally ill, and they don't know how long he's got. He went in the hospital last May, and actually April all the way through May, and they told me to start phoning funeral homes. He was not leaving the hospital, and here he is today. We're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, and this is the thing. Like, life is rocky, man, and we have to make sure that we set up some really healthy coping systems for ourselves, and set up some really healthy support systems for ourselves. If you're a survivor out here and you don't have a good support system, it's a good idea to start building one, because we need friends, we need help, we need support, whether it's therapist, counselor, group support, online group support, anonymous support, whatever. Good friends, find a good friend, find one good friend, that you can trust. And in order to find one good friend, you have to be a good friend, and that's the truth of it. It doesn't work any other way than that. And I don't have a whole lot of friends. I try to be a good friend, and it's hard for me. And but I have found the most wonderful friends. And so I'm thankful, right? Very, very thankful, because these people are my family, right? So I'm trying to be the other side of that and be good to them too, right? But it's important to have a support system. It's very important, because if we're ever going to do any healing or any kind of work like that, we need to have that help. We need to have that support. I was thinking I could do it all on my own forever. At the age of 41, I was ready to kill myself again, and I realized, I said, I can't do this on my own. I really can't. And I needed to reach out. And I said, man, if I have to go see a psychotherapist, then I'm going. But whatever it is I need, I'm going to get it, because I so deserve it, just like everybody else. Deserve to heal, deserve to enjoy this life and feel good about myself and work through this stuff and learn to change my behaviors that were forced on me as a child. And, I can learn to change this. I can learn to live and enjoy this life. I don't have to die. I don't have to die some horrible death. I don't have to be destroyed by this abuse. And that was the revelation that came to me at, 4.5 years ago. April will be 5 years. So, it's an amazing process, and I hope and I just pray that, if you're a survivor out there, that you will not give up and that you will make the right choices on your behalf to get some help, right? Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, one Try to Be Survivor to another, and then on the weekend as well on my shows and stuff. And Sunday I have Patrick Dowdy coming on, and what an awesome guy. Like, he has an amazing story of survival and just his whole life. He's a true survivor. And so please check out my show page there, and I hope you can be there for that show. It's going to be wonderful. Have a great day, everybody. Take really good care of yourself, right? And allow other people to help you, too. Talk to you soon.